4 days ago, my family got back in touch with me after 2 years of no contact since my fiancée had cheated on me with my brother on the day of my engagement, and it had turned into a huge mess, so I had to cut them off. For context, my fiancée, my brother, and I all went to school together and have known each other for a really long time. Kim, my fiancée, was in the same year as us, and Ron, my brother, was just 2 years behind. Ron and I used to be very close when we were younger, so we were kind of part of the same friend circle, and that meant that he was also friends with Kim. I asked him to be my prom date in my senior year, and after that, we started dating. We even ended up in the same college, so we had been together for almost 7 years when I asked her to marry me. She said yes, and we got engaged. I hosted a party that day itself, with only our families and a couple of really close friends coming over in the evening to celebrate the big news before we announced it on social media. I was too busy celebrating what had happened to myself to notice anything that was going around me, so I didn't see Ron looking really upset and trying hard to put on a happy face. Neither did I notice him leave to have a smoke in the backyard, and nor did I realize that when Kim had excused herself to use the loo, she had been gone for almost 15 minutes. But all of a sudden, when I realized that Kim had been gone for more than 10 minutes, I decided to check up on her and I headed to the loo. To my surprise, she was not there, and my gut told me that I should check the backyard. And I was saved from a terrible marriage because when I peeped into the backyard, I saw my brother making out with my fiancée. I had already been getting a terrible gut feeling when both of them left the room one after the other, and seeing that kind of sent me into shock. I froze for a couple of seconds before I finally reacted and yelled at them, which finally made them break apart. They tried to act innocent, which was obviously pointless. I had seen what they were up to, and I knew the truth. I started to walk back inside the house and I was feeling so many things at once, I don't even remember exactly what they were trying to say to me. I just remembered that they were trying to talk to me, but I had completely zoned out, and I wasn't even listening to them. I walked into the living room with them behind me and without even waiting for them to say anything, I announced what I had seen, and I told our families that the engagement was unfortunately off because Kim was a nasty cheater, and Ron had no sense of loyalty. Kim started crying, and Ron was trying to comfort her and the sight of that upset me so much that I told both of them to get out of my house. At the time, Kim and I had been living together, but it was my name on the lease agreement. We used to split the rent, so she tried to argue with me and said that she was not going to go anywhere because she hadn't done anything wrong. Now naturally, that came as a shock to me because I think that making out with your fiancé's brother is pretty much the definition of wrong. But she went on to explain that she had only said yes to going out with me when we were in high school because she needed a date for prom, and even when she was in college, she had believed that she loved me, but she didn't really, and in the past couple of years, after we had graduated, she had realized that she had feelings for Ron and not me. Apparently, living with me had made her realize that our relationship would never work because we were just too different. She thought that I was a workaholic who did not know how to have fun, and I was way too controlling and possessive. I honestly had no idea what she was talking about because I work a normal amount and I really don't prioritize work over my personal life. As for having fun, I don't even know what that means because in my opinion, I'm plenty of fun. I don't even want to get into what she was saying about me being controlling and possessive because I don't think I was that way with her at any point, but I think she just wanted a reason to break up with me, so she had come up with a bunch of those in her own head and had started validating them herself. Anyway, she went on to tell me that she had been talking to Rohan about her problems with me for a couple of years, and she had slowly started falling for him. In fact, they hadn't even been together, but getting engaged just made her realize that she couldn't do this, and when she saw that, even Ron seemed pretty upset and actually had to leave the room, she took that as a sign and went after him. In the backyard, they had spoken about their feelings for each other, and only after the confession had they kissed for the first time. They said that the only reason both of them had been holding back for so long was because she and I had been together for so long that neither of them wanted to hurt me. That was the only reason Kim had agreed to marry me, because she didn't think that would make a move on her since he loved his brother. And Ron had been thinking along similar lines, that maybe he never had a chance with Kim because she loved me a lot, even though she did complain about me to him constantly. But after they had spoken to each other in the backyard, they realized that her engagement with me was never going to work because she was in love with him and so was he. And now Kim wanted to break her engagement off with me and try to have a real relationship with my brother. Both our families and a few friends that we had invited were shocked, and I felt humiliated that this was happening, but there was no choice. Her parents, thankfully, seemed to be reasonable people and apologized to me for what their daughter had done and told her that she was free to do whatever she wanted, but for now, they really didn't want to speak to her. My parents, on the other hand, turned out to be the worst parents on earth because they actually started supporting the two of them. They tried to explain to me that it was completely natural for Kim to fall out of love with me and that I shouldn't take it too hard, since these things happen and all I could do was try and move on. In fact, they even expected me to be supportive of the relationship between Kim and Ron now. When I tried to make them realize how ridiculous they sounded, they just got exasperated and told me that I always had been a difficult person to deal with, so it was not very surprising that Kim had decided to go with Ron, who was much more easygoing than me. They told me that I was too tightly wound, and they had known that the relationship with Kim was not going to last since she was the exact opposite of me and had always been more like my brother. And both of them seemed to agree with it, so I started to think that maybe my entire family had lost their minds. Anyway, I was so upset that I didn't feel like spending any more time with them, trying to argue and explain what I was feeling. All they wanted to do was celebrate the fact that Kim and Ron were finally together because I guess my parents had known that he had feelings for her. And they were trying really hard to make me feel like I was somehow responsible for my own relationship falling apart, and acting like whatever Kim had said about me was true, so I guess that justifies whatever she had done. At least my friends seemed to be on my side and they helped me pack a few of my things, and one of them let me spend the next couple of weeks with them since I didn't want to go home. Now, I guess I could say that after the day of the engagement, I didn't have to see any of them ever again, but that wouldn't be true. I had to go back several times to gather my things, since I had been living in that house for a really long time, pretty much ever since I graduated, and one evening was not enough to get all my things. She returned the money that I had paid for rent that month, and every time I would go to collect my things over the next few weeks, Ron was always there with her, and it just upset me to no end. Anyway, after I had collected my things and she had returned the money and the ring, I decided to cut ties with them. I had been in touch with my parents on and off for a few weeks, and I couldn't believe that they were actually supportive of what Ron had done. They told me that if Kim was not happy with me, it was completely up to her what she wanted to do and who she wanted to be with, and if it was wrong that she wanted to be with, it was not exactly wrong of him to take her up on that offer. If they loved each other, it didn't matter if she had cheated on me or if he had betrayed me, they belonged together, and they were going to be supportive of the relationship, no matter how I felt. And no matter how much I denied it, they continued to bring up whatever Kim had said about me being controlling, possessive, never having enough time for her, and not knowing how to have fun. It had come to a stage where I had actually started questioning whether any of those things. So I spoke to a couple of my friends, and these were people who had always been honest with me since we had been friends from school. They have known me and Kim for a really long time, so I could count on them to be honest with me, and they told me that whatever she had said was a bunch of baloney and she was only coming up with that stuff to justify her affair. I worked a reasonable amount, they confirmed it, and I cared about my work just as any other person does. Not more and certainly not less. And I was quite a fun person to be around. Maybe I wasn't always the life of the party like my brother was, but that didn't matter because I knew how to let loose, and that was all. Besides, things like that shouldn't even matter in a relationship. It wasn't like her life had become boring or difficult because of me. As for controlling and possessive, my friends vehemently denied that, and that just made me believe it even more firmly that my family and Kim were just trying to gaslight me to be believing that I was all of these things, and that's why I deserved to be left the way that I had been. But eventually, I stopped saying them, and I managed to cut my family out of my life as well. I heard from a few friends that Ron and Kim had married each other in a private and intimate ceremony about a year after we had separated, and I honestly didn't even feel anything. One more year has passed since then, and for almost 2 years, I've had no contact with my family. I've achieved a lot in life, traveling a lot, and so I don't even feel like I've missed out on anything. However, last week, my mother called me up, and at first, I declined and even blocked the number that she had been calling me from. But that did not stop her. She started using another number, and when I realized that it was her, I still did not pick up. She kept trying to go, and after almost 4 hours, I decided to answer the call because she hadn't stopped calling every other minute. I was quite irritable, but when I called her back, I heard her crying on the other end, and I was very confused because I had no idea what she was sobbing about. So instead of yelling at her like I had planned, I decided to ask her what was going on, and she told me that apparently, my brother and Kim had been in an accident and both of them had slipped into a coma. The accident had been terrible. A truck had plowed into them, and the two of them were in a terrible condition. I'm not even kidding. I felt really sorry for them, and I told my mother to hang in there because whatever they had done to me, this was something really horrible, and I definitely hadn't been expecting something like this. My mother couldn't stop crying on the phone, so she had to give it to my dad, who was a little calmer, and told me that they were calling to ask me to visit them so they would have some sort of support during this time. I didn't even understand what they meant by some sort of support because both Ron and Kim had health insurance, so it's not like they needed my money. As for emotional support, they had each other, and I'm not sure what I could be there for. And to be honest, they haven't been in touch with me for the past 2 years, so I didn't understand why they wanted me to be there for them all of a sudden. But a couple of minutes later, my dad clarified what he meant, and I'm still reeling from the shock of it. Apparently, they wanted me to support them by babysitting Kim and Ron's 2-month-old son. The whole pregnancy journey and both had been a well-kept secret, made easier by the fact that Kim and Ron had been in Oklahoma during the pregnancy. He had been working on a project there when they found out and decided to stay there for the entire duration of the pregnancy, and both there as well. They had friends and a couple of family members there as well, so it was all good, and their family had even flown down to be there for the birth of the baby. Everything had been kept private on purpose because that's what Kim and Ron wanted, and they had only come back a couple of weeks ago so they could let everyone know, but now, they were in the hospital after this terrible accident. I honestly felt numb after learning this and didn't know how to react, but my dad told me that for now, they had hired a sitter to look after the baby, but they needed to think about something long-term as well. Apparently, they had spoken to the medical team and Kim and Ron have been given 50-50 chances of survival. So my dad had called me to say that just in case something were to happen to them, they wanted me to help raise the baby. He thought that this was the most valid way to deal with the situation, so he wanted me to come see the baby and at least try to create a bond with him. I thought that was a ridiculous expectation to have from me, and I instantly told him that I was not going to do anything of this sort. Literally everything about his suggestion was incredibly problematic, and I did not want to be a part of it, but instead of accepting that, he started yelling at me and said that I was being stupid and selfish. And that right now things are not about me, about Kim and Ron, because they are literally in a coma and I need to think about them before declining. He said that the family needs me right now, and most importantly, my nephew needs me, so I need to be there for everyone instead of holding on to old grudges. But it's not like I declined because of any grudges. I declined because it's just weird. I don't want to have to build a relationship with my nephew under circumstances like this. I didn't even know I had a nephew until a couple of days ago, and all of a sudden, I'm expected to step up and start taking care of him like he was my own, and think about taking care of him in the future as well, just in case anything happens to his parents. His parents are another story altogether, and I don't even want to get that right now. But the bottom line is, I just don't want to see anyone from the family right now because my feelings are a mess, and I really don't think that I want to be put in a situation where I have to try and build a relationship with a kid, where his chances of being orphaned are 50-50 right now. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm just not willing to see anyone right now. And my parents have been saying that this isn't fair and insisting that I need to come to the hospital, to see my nephew and be there for everyone. It's been making me feel like a total jerk, and I really don't know what to do right now. Ida, for not wanting to go see my nephew while his parents are in the hospital? Update 1. So thank you so much for all the comments and advice. I really don't have an answer as to why they wanted to keep the pregnancy a secret from everyone. I guess they just wanted some privacy at the time. Regardless of that, I was kind of shocked. It's only been a couple of years since we broke up, and now, they're married with a kid. I guess it just took me a little while to process that news, but I've accepted it now, and I think the best thing for me to do right now would be to stay away. I know that this is not about me, that they have been in an accident and they are in the hospital right now. And honestly, all my prayers and good wishes go out to them. I really honestly hope that they recover fully well and are able to come back to life, because my parents need them, their child needs them, and I'm sure that things will work out. But I need to think about my own mental health as well, and I really don't think that taking up the responsibility of my nephew is going to make it any better. Especially considering the fact that his mother used to be the love of my life at some point. So I really don't think it's a good idea for me to try and build a relationship with him, and I honestly don't even know if his parents would have wanted that. Most of the comments here validated my decision not to go meet them or see them right now, because it's not like I have to. They have people looking out for them, I don't. So I have to have my own back right now. I haven't been responding to any of the phone calls and messages from my parents right now because I don't even know what to tell them. I've tried explaining my side to them, but they just don't get it. I don't think they're even capable of understanding what I'm going through or what I went through 2 years back. So it's pretty pointless to talk to them, and I've decided that I'm going to keep ignoring them until I absolutely can't. I have a life and work of my own to attend to as well, so I'm hoping that it will keep me distracted enough from whatever is going on that side of the family. Update 2. My parents decided to pay me a visit today. I've been ignoring them for the past 2 weeks, and I guess they just couldn't take it anymore. It's the weekend right now, so I couldn't even escape to work, and I had to speak to them. At least something productive came out of the discussion, so I'm happy that it happened, but not really happy about the way things went down. They showed up in the morning and I had to let them in, and they didn't even bother with any small talk before jumping to the purpose of their visit. They said that they had noticed that I had been ignoring them, but now that they were here, I couldn't do that anymore. They demanded answers for my behavior and said that it was really selfish of me to leave them to deal with what was going on in the family without even bothering to check up on them. It was their belief that what had happened with me 2 years back with Kim and Ron was not right, but they loved each other and I couldn't have prevented that from taking place anyway. They told me that I should have been grateful that I found out about their feelings for each other on the day of engagement itself, and after we had already gotten married. So they did not see any reason to feel sorry about supporting my brother and Kim. They also said that even if I felt like they had betrayed me, I still shouldn't be behaving like this because it's bad enough that my brother and Kim have been in an accident, and the last thing that the family needs is for me to be so selfish and heartless that I don't even forgive them after they have gone through something so terrible. I was kind of shocked that they were making it sound like that, like I should just forgive them because they had been in an accident and that was their karma, which is why I don't need to bother anymore. I'm not sure that that's how things work, but I didn't say anything to them and let them speak without any interruptions. I was saving everything that I had to say until the end because I honestly don't think that interrupting them and turning the situation into a shouting match would have helped. So I should take it as a sign to at least try and make things right with them, because right now, there's no telling what might happen, and the doctors have still asked us to hold out. And they believe that I can start by trying to build a relationship with my nephew, just in case I have to take over. That is what really irked me. At that point, I finally interrupted them and said that even if, in a hypothetical situation, I agreed to take over, as they say, It would still be really weird if I decided to visit the baby and try and build a relationship with my nephew, and then all of a sudden, Kim and Ron started getting better and decided that they did not want me around the baby anymore. Then where would I be? I would already get attached to the baby, and then that would be ripped away from me. And on top of that, it was weird that my parents were acting like Kim and Ron were already gone. The doctors had given them a 50-50 chance of survival, so even if there was a 50% chance of them surviving and making it, I think the family should have some hope. Instead of spending time with their kids at the hospital, they were here wasting their time arguing with me. And I didn't even see the sense of why they were doing this, so I told them that it would be better for them to go back to the hospital and actually do something productive with their time. But they seemed to be offended at the implication that they were wasting that time and said that they had only approached me because they thought that I was the only person who would be able to take great care of my nephew, just like my brother had done. And they told me that when Kim and Ron came around and found out that I had bothered to come to see them and build a relationship with my nephew, they would have been happy. They did say that, but they didn't sound too confident by saying it. And they shouldn't have, because we haven't spoken for the past 2 years and we ended on a terrible note. They have never seemed apologetic for their actions, and I highly doubt that they would be happy if I tried to build a relationship with their baby anyway. I told my parents that my final decision was that I was not going to go see them, at least not right now. I still needed some time to think about what I was feeling, and I knew that nobody cared about my feelings, but I did. I had stayed out of their life and never bothered them. So now, it was time for them to respect my feelings and do the same for me. I thought that they were going to argue again after that, but luckily, they seemed to understand what I was getting at and just gave up. They still told me that they would be waiting for me to show up, but I told them not to hold out much hope. I did say that I hoped and prayed that Kim and Ron would be able to make a full recovery soon enough, because I really do. And I didn't want to come off as insensitive, so I felt like it was necessary for me to say that. I even handed over a box of chocolates that I had bought a couple of days ago. I had thought that I would gift it to a friend of mine who had helped me out with something, but at that moment, I thought that it would be better for me to hand it over to them for Kim and Ron. I told them that this was the best I could do for them and that my parents should give them this box when they came around. But that's as far as I was willing to go. Anyway, they're gone now and I feel a lot lighter, so I guess I needed this at some point. Update 3. So it has been almost 6 months since I last posted here, and I feel like I owe everyone an update. I know everybody wants to hear about what happened with Kim and Ron, and here's the deal: they survived. Thankfully, about a couple of weeks after my parents visited me, they started stirring, and they were able to make a full recovery eventually. I had actually bothered to go to see them in the hospital before they started coming to their senses, and I had even met my nephew. It was very difficult for me to see them in that condition, and it was even more difficult for me to see my nephew, but I did it, and I guess it just gave me some sense of closure that I didn't have for so long. So I'm grateful that I did what I did, and a few months ago, my brother and Kim even texted me to let me know that they were very thankful that I had come to see them and met my nephew as well. After almost 2 years, they finally apologized to me and said that they wish things could have turned out differently between us, but it's fine with me now because I've moved on. I wouldn't say that I have forgiven them. That would not be true, and I don't think I even have it in me to forgive them. But I have come to accept whatever has happened, and I guess that's the best that I can do. And it's the best that they should be expecting from me, so I guess we're all fine with that. Anyway, I told them that it was fine, and since then, we haven't exactly spoken, and I'm fine with it. That's how I want things to be, and I'm happy enough without my family in my life. I also started seeing somebody recently, and this time it's pretty serious. I have had a couple of flings and casual relationships in the past after my breakup with Kim, but I guess this is the first time that I've actually had such strong feelings, and I think it will work out well this time. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I'm hopeful for the future. Thank you so much for bothering to keep up with my life. That means a lot to me.